I do have lots to share with you today, and what I wanted to do was quickly introduce myself. I'll give you kind of the little schedule that we've got here. We are starting early, and I'll just use more of that time, more time to talk a little bit about Acrobat. And then I'll introduce myself and go from there. My goal for these sessions really is to just inspire you to do some stuff, because you've got these tools in your hands, and people who own these tools use them to do a tremendous amount of digital communicating, I guess, for lack of a better term. I also have business cards here, and what my goal really is for you to come up with or think about ways that you want to use stuff like this to communicate with others. And the world is exploding when it comes to the ability to communicate. The revolution that we're seeing because of devices like this, the iPad, Zoom, the Kindle Fire, which someone is going to win today, which I think is fantastic. And I forgot to ask, Lisa or Tina, can I win the Kindle Fire? Forget it, I'm not presenting that. These devices all make it easy for people to access information. Your goal, I hope, is to provide that information, because you can speak to people in ways that you've never been able to before. And I think that what we're seeing in the explosion of these devices mirrors what we saw when PostScript was first generated, which gave people the ability to, change the typeface of what they were going to be able to print. Well, now it's not just about the piece of paper, it's about the piece of paper and the PDF file and the EPUB file and the application and it goes on and on. And so what we're trying to do at Adobe is to give you the set of tools that you can use to create that content once, and then as easily as it is possible to do so, generate very different ways of distributing that information. So I don't see anyone that was in my session this morning, but we did, oh, there we go, sorry, up in the back. Our goal over time is to work with Case to provide you the information that you need to be able to be successful with these tools, and this is an example of that. So what I'm going to cover in 4 sessions, we're going to talk about Acrobat, Forms, and Folios. Forms and Portfolios, actually. But Port and F don't go together, so Forms and Folios. Learn how to use Acrobat at the desktop level to do some pretty interesting things with data collection. Then after that, we're going to talk about publishing and publishing content now. And no, it's publishing in the iPad. Someone tried to change it here. But pad-based devices are starting to take over from a book or a bag of books. Not that books are bad. I think books are still good, but to the extent that you can publish. So what do you got in your hand there, sir? Hold it up high and proud. The world of communication is going to include devices like that more so each day that we move along. And so I'm going to talk to you about some things that you can do with basic layout skills that InDesign has to offer, and I'll point to where you can go get some of those basic layout skills. I don't see Kirsten over there, but Kristen's over there. Hi, Kristen. The Case has made some other investments in learning how to use this software that I think will pay you some dividends. So we're going to talk about what can be done, because you can do some really amazing things with your content without having to learn things like coding and C++ and JavaScript and all of that. If you can do some basic layout and click a few mouse buttons, you can be good to go. Can you click a few mouse buttons? All right. Just want to make sure. Okay. You're looking skeptical. If you make eye contact with me during this session, I'm probably going to say something directly to you. So I'm like a gorilla in the wild. Don't look him straight in the eye. He'll eat your bananas. So that's scheduled. The InDesign is scheduled to start at 2:15, and I'm going to try and stay to that because I think some people might be coming for that. And around 3 o'clock, I'll be talking about Photoshop. And Photoshop is usually one of the big ones that people want to learn to play with. What I'm going to do is give you more than just some of the basics about Photoshop. I'm going to show you the tools that if you just figure out how to use those tools, and they're not hard, you can do some really cool things with Photoshop. But not just cool because you can put, I think it was Wendy who said, or Kirsten who said, put a person's face on a gorilla's body, or I think she said goat even. But how you can use Photoshop to take imagery and create visualizations with that to help tell your story. Because it turns out that reading for human beings is actually kind of hard. Now, does that mean we shouldn't learn to read? Of course not. What we should learn to do is combine imagery with words so that we can get our point across very quickly. And I'm going to show you a couple of tools here and there that you can use to do that, even if you're an absolute novice with the tool, because there's some easiness there. And then at the end of it, we're going to talk about a thing called Adobe Connect, which is our online web-based, I guess that means online, when I throw in internet activated too, just to make it good and redundant, collaboration, meeting space, and lecture capture tool. And I'm actually going to capture these sessions and provide them as recordings so that when Wendy and Kirsten can provide them to you after the fact. Because these sessions, they're very short. They're designed to be little sips here and there. I'm going to cover a lot of stuff really, really quickly, and you're going to say, whoa, how did he do that? I see some of you are ready to take notes. I hope you can write quickly. That's why we're going to record them, so you can go back after the fact and just kind of see what it is. I also, again, now that Kirsten's over there, hi, Kirsten, wave. It's Kirsten's job to continue to help this stuff be valuable to you. And Case Western has invested in a thing called lynda.com. That's with a Y, Lynda.com. And Lynda has all of the little training videos that you might use to take this the next step. And I guarantee you, I don't care who you are, as long as you can use a mouse, you can, from this information, start to communicate in a way that I bet you didn't realize you could. You've got the tools in your hands. You've got the training. Let's see what it can do. So I'm going to go ahead and start capturing the audio here. I have a nervous tick. No, I'm just checking the, see, look, if you look up there, you can see the microphone. I'm just making sure the microphone's active. So, because in order to capture this recording and be interesting at all, you're going to want to see my, or hear what I'm saying. Or maybe not, but you're going to have to anyway. So, okay, we'll start the recording. And we're going to call this one Case Harvest Fest Acrobat. And there we go. We are recording. Oh, let me share my screen. That would be good. So in order for the recording to be anything other than just a big gray screen, I'm going to click Share My Screen. Whoops. Go back here. Well, that's not going to be very good if it won't let me share my screen. Let me, oh, there we go. I think we're on the guest network here, and I'm wondering if maybe other people are checking their Facebook pages right now. All right. So how many people here have ever used a PDF form? By show of hands. Okay. How many people here convert oxygen to carbon dioxide with their lungs? Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to go a little step beyond that. I'm going to open a file here, and the file that I'm going to open is an example form. It's a very, very simple form. Sorry, I got distracted doing other things as opposed to opening my demo files like I should have, but here it is. So this is kind of the standard sort of experience that people have with PDF. The great thing about PDF, it's a standard file format. It's not a proprietary file format. It is owned by the International Standards Organization. It's International Standards Organization number 36,000 or 32,000, something like that. So that's great because I can take anything and convert it to a PDF, and it doesn't matter what was used to create it. Your experience would be the same experience I expect. So all that legalese at the end of the form, you don't get to claim wasn't there. It's there. But the problem with forms is that if I just put this up online and you download it and start, print it out, fill it in, and send it back to me, I have to collect the data from the forms into a spreadsheet somehow. I have to struggle with your handwriting. Okay, you have to struggle with my handwriting. My handwriting is terrible. And it will allow you to make sort of, decisions isn't probably the right word. It will allow you to put information into the form that is ridiculous. So if I zoom in here, and I've got this place for other, you could put anything you want in there, and that's not useful information. In fact, a statistic that I heard the other day, actually it was a little while ago, is that a large charitable organization who uses paper-based forms to collect donations loses something like $3 million a year because they can't really tell what the pledge was. And since they're not allowed to make any assumptions at all, they have to throw those forms away. So that problem alone is something that can be very vexing. What we're going to do is we're going to resolve that problem in just a few steps using Acrobat. Now, this is Acrobat 10, and this is the tool that you have access to. We've reordered the layout a little bit to make things easier for you to start to get at. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of walk through a process not only to turn this into a form that you can complete completely on the computer, even if you only have the free reader, we're going to convert it to something that will allow me to collect data into a database or a spreadsheet, which I can then push into a database. Because 9 times out of 10, if we're looking to collect data, we're not actually looking to collect a group of PDF files that we then have to struggle with or stacks of paper. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Tools, and under Forms, I'm going to look and see what form tools I have, and I'm going to edit because I want to convert this to a form. Now, Acrobat is so smart that it can tell that I'm probably wanting to make a form, and it's going to help me because it's asking me if there are no form fields in this, do I want Acrobat to detect them for me? Why, yes, I do, Acrobat. And Acrobat actually walked through the form and added these things here, which are form elements, on top of all of the things that look like form elements. So if nothing else, this is a really good way for you to determine if your form is a good form. Because if your form looks like almost all of the standard IRS forms, it's not going to be able to figure out that that thing is a form element versus some really, really tiny text. So that can help you. But the other thing is that it did, it just saved me a bunch of time. If I click on Preview here, now I've got a form that I can complete right here on the computer by clicking, and because this is a text field, dollar since I kicked that over, I can type. So what other artifacts? Second Life, Avatar. So there. At least I don't have to deal with handwriting. But you know what? We're not done here because this is getting there, but I need to start making it more intelligent. And it turns out that Second Life Avatar is not a potential option that I want you to even put in there. I want you to put one of 2 or 3 other options that really didn't fit here and they're kind of lower on the list, but I'm going to come up here, and to make that happen, I'm going to add my own custom element. In this case, I'm going to add a drop-down list. Click on the drop-down list tool. Click and drag, click on All Properties, and among the options, we'll say InDesign, add that. We'll say Photoshop, we'll add that, and we'll say, oh, what's your favorite software application? Oh, okay, Photoshop. You're going to win a prize, I bet. How about you? What's your favorite software application? Beg your pardon? Another T-shirt winner in the crowd. Illustrator. No need to check spelling. Let me click Close. We'll preview that. And look at that. I just gave you some choices from which to pick in this form. In other words, I'm making this form a lot more intelligent for me, not just for you, because I'm not going to have to struggle with ridiculous answers like, when people put on their forms, age, well, younger than you, snap, whatever. So we'll take that away. We're going to add another element to this document, because right now this document has no place for a name. No problem. I'm going to take the text field tool, click and drag, and I'm going to name this form element name. Among its properties, I can do things like give it an appearance. So I'm going to give it a border of black so that it looks like a field element. In the options, I'm going to say, I'm going to add a enter your name. How about enter your name? Don't want to make it spell check, don't want to make it scroll. That default text will be there. And I think that's probably good enough. And look at that. Now I've just added a name field. Now, it's probably best to go back to the original InDesign document, put a thing that says name underscore. And even if I have to do that, the good news is that if I do that, I can, using the tools, just use the Pages tool here to replace the underlying PDF with the new one that I just generated in InDesign or Word or Excel, all of my form fields will stay in place. So I don't have to redo all of that form work just because I realized there might be a spelling mistake in the underlying PDF file. So it's a very efficient way to work, or it's a very efficient way to start building a form. But right now, we really haven't solved much of a problem. In other words, this is still going to be a form that you're going to fill in, and to get it back to me, you're going to print it out. But that is almost a necessity. You are going to have some people in your workflow that are going to want to print this out and fax it or email it or mail it back to you. That's just how people are. Not everyone is comfortable with or willing to or able to submit stuff via the internet. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some functionality to make at least that part easier, and then we're going to extend the capability to go even beyond that. So what I'm adding here is what's called a button. Simple button. We're going to make this a print button, because those people who are unwilling to submit the form using the submission technique I'll show you in a moment are probably also going to have a hard time figuring out how to print the document using the print icon up here. So I want to make a nice, big, shiny, candy-like button. It's going to be pink, looking like cotton candy. Now, aren't you all hungry for cotton candy? I'm going to make it beveled so it'll look like a button. Give it a nice option here, or a label, so that it says print. And under actions, I'm going to add an action that when you click the mouse and let go, that's the mouse up trigger, you can execute a menu item, and we'll click add, and the menu item that I want is file print. Click close, and let's preview it. So now, when you're looking at this in the free reader, even if you don't know the rest of the interface here in Reader, all you need to do is click on print, and it will take you to the print dialog box. Now, can anyone spot the problem in the preview of this document right now? I've actually had people, when I print this out, try to push that button on the piece of paper. You think I'm joking? Okay, I'm joking. But it's still, it doesn't look good. It just doesn't look good. So what I'm going to do is cancel this. I'm going to come back here to editing, double-click on this button. And one of the things that I can do with these form elements is I can determine that they are visible but that they don't print. Now when I click print, it's just going to print the rest of the form but not print the button. And that actually looks a lot better. It looks more professional. But because I also have some people in the workflow that are going to be willing to submit the document, what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it. And that way it looks exactly the same. It's the same size, same color. But I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to change its name from print now to submit. Under its appearance, we'll give it a different color. We'll stay with the candy-like theme, nice cherry red, which seems kind of alarming. I'm going to change that. It's making me nervous. There we go. Under options, we'll have it say submit, not print. And under actions, I'm going to remove this action. I'm going to choose submit a form. Click close. And, whoops, not close, click add. There we go. And how many people, bless you again, how many people here have access to a database admin who is at their beck and call waiting to set up the database to collect this information? This guy. He probably is that database admin. So, I see. Your team is going to like what I'm about to say because they're not going to get swamped with all of these requests. It is the case that I can set this up, http://www.case.edu/cgi-bin blah, blah, blah. So if I want, I can push the content of this form into what actually will act and feel very much like any web-based form using that URL. But I don't have the access to that, so what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to collect the PDF file back, and I'm going to type in mailto : mail to my email address at adobe.com. What I've just done is I've made a button that when you push it, And I've already quit my email client, so I'm not going to push it. But when you push it, it will open up an outgoing email pre-addressed to timothyp@adobe.com with this PDF file with the data in it saved and ready to go. So in an ad hoc way, if you need to collect some data from a form, you've got all the tools that you need to do it right here. Now, I promised you a spreadsheet. I didn't promise you an email inbox full of PDF files, and I'm going to keep that promise. But let me explain a couple of things first. The reason that I built this document this way with the print button and the submit button in place is because the value of PDF, as you might be thinking or you might be wondering, isn't in its ability to collect data via the web. You could do that with a web form. In fact, if you want to do that with a web form, I have a free tool for you. It's called Form Central. It is, and I'll open up an example form over here. It is exactly that. It's a web form. It actually has a database on the back end. It can provide you a spreadsheet-like collection of data. It's going to take a few moments to open that form, but it's going to provide you a spreadsheet-like collection of data. And if you don't need there to be any sort of specific, well, let me think how to say this. If you don't mind that someone could change the size of the fonts on their computer and change the look and feel of the form, then this is a pretty good way to go. If you're used to using SurveyMonkey or Google Docs, that's fine too. Yeah, we'll let that open on its own in just a moment. But the value of a PDF form is that it does not change no matter how someone wants to submit the information to you. And someone can't come in and change the size and the look and the feel and the location of pieces of the form so that they can't claim that the legalese that is included in the form wasn't for them or wasn't available to them. So in this case, I've created a form that I can print, that I can submit, or someone could, if they understand how to use Acrobat, fill it in, click Save, and open an email and attach it that way as well. So you have many, many ways to collect this data back. Once you have this data, though, how do you actually turn this data into something actionable? Let me show you. I'm going to stop the form editing process now. And over here, I've got this More Form Options tool. I'm going to select Manage Form Data, Merge Data Files into Spreadsheet. So we're going to fast forward through time. And while we're fast forwarding, let me just get that open too. We're going to fast forward through time. I've been collecting these forms. They've come in. Some people have emailed them to me. Some people have attached them to an email after saving them, not using my submit button. Some people printed them out and they faxed the printout. To get those into my spreadsheet, what I've done is I've collected the PDF files that people have sent me. I've opened a blank version of the form with the piece of paper, and I've typed it in for them, which, believe me, is much easier to transfer information from a PDF into a PDF that looks exactly like that PDF than to try and take data from a PDF and put it in a spreadsheet manually. It's much less prone to error. I've got all these files. I'm going to click Add Files. Here they are. Not very many of them. Very, very specific form. But here they are. I'm going to click Select. I'm going to choose Export. It's going to ask me where to put it. I'll throw it out on the desktop. We'll view the file. And now I have a spreadsheet. Every item in the form is a column. Every respondent is a row. And now this is data that I can do anything I want with. And to get the data in a usable form, it's basically how I set up the form. So it says here, image file sent, off, 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 off. That's going to be kind of hard to add that up, right? So I'm just going to go back to the form, and we'll edit the form one more time. And I'm going to double-click on this, go to Options, and set the export value not to on, but to 1. So that I can use Excel if I want to go ahead and sort of manage this data. So as an ad hoc data collection tool, Adobe Acrobat is an amazing piece of software. It gets a little bit better than that, and then there's a whole other thing that I need to show you here that you can do with this. So I'm going to turn the preview off. I'm going to go back to, I'm going to stop the form from editing. And I'm going to click on Distribute, and then I'm just going to show you what you end up with. This here, if you're uncomfortable setting up that ad hoc workflow, putting in a submit button, collecting these in your email, putting them together using the technique that I just showed you, I've got another step you can take with this. We have a set of services on the web that are free, and this is an example of one of them. This is called Form Central. They're generally found at a place called Acrobat.com. To use Acrobat.com, all you need is an email address and you create a password. Is that a Zoom? Sir, right there in front? Is that a Zoom? Okay, but is that a Droid-based device? Yeah. We have another T-shirt winner in the crowd. Sorry. Letting my prejudice show a little bit. Acrobat.com, email address and password, and you can take advantage of something like this. One of the services that we have at Acrobat.com that you can access directly through Acrobat is a thing called Distribute Form. What it does is, I'm just going to click Cancel and show you the result. Basically, you create a connection between this form and Acrobat.com. Someone fills it in, and they click the Submit button. The data doesn't come to you in an email. It goes up to Acrobat.com and gets collected over time. Now, the other thing that it does is it builds you a repository that you can grab directly. So let me show you what that looks like. So this thing is called a responses document. And I'm going to open it up. The responses document is and actually it's importing some data. You saw that live in front of you. That's what happens. You open the thing up and it says, hey, someone responded to your form. So I'm going to click Get Started. These are the responses that I've had to that form. If I want to, I can update along the way. This thing is actually something called a PDF portfolio. And I can do a couple of things with this that are important. One, I can see what the responses look like in the context of the actual form. So if it's important for me to be able to do that, I can do that. I'm going to close that up. I can also export this content as a comma delimited values file, exactly the same way that I did before. So what the Distribute Forms thing does for you is it silently collects information over time. As responses come in and you want to open this up, it'll pull them down in so that you can take a look at them. And then I'm going to click on Tracker. The Tracker is something that is built into the process that allows you to, with a particular form. That's interesting. It's telling me I don't have access rights to this form. To the particular form, must not be connected right now. To this particular form, I can start to do some interesting things, like, for example, I can add recipients to the form. Because the other thing that the Distribute Form things does is it takes the PDF file, puts it up on Acrobat.com, and sends out to all of the email respondents, or not the email respondent, all to the people that I want to share it with, a link to that PDF. So I don't even have to post it on my own website. I can literally put it on Acrobat.com. They can download the form, complete it, and it will collect the information for them. So that's the forms piece. I brought up Folio. And that thing that I just opened, that responses document, is a folio. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open an example of another kind of folio, and then I'm going to show you how easy it is to assemble a PDF portfolio that you can use to share anything with anyone. So first off, let me go ahead and open a document here that I have. Whoops. I do a very effective job of hiding things from myself. Portfolio file, there it is. Oh, I didn't see it before. So this is a kid named Isaac. And what Isaac wanted to do was he wanted to talk about a project that he was working on called Project NIU. And by the way, this is a real project. If you jot down projectniu.org, it's a website that came out of this project. But he wanted to be able to tell the story as he was applying to engineering schools, because it became an engineering project. And he's got a picture of himself. Here is a document that is some text that he wrote for a script that he used to tell the story of Project NIU. And to tell the story, instead of having to create a PowerPoint file, he just went out and shot some JPEG files and by putting them into the portfolio, he can slide from image to image and tell you that this thing is a GPS unit that they threw into the ocean off the coast of Hawaii to track trash. The reason it became an engineering project was because he and a group of his fellow students and some engineers in Hawaii built this GPS unit from scratch. So they learned a lot about a lot of things. But the script that he was using was to tell the story so that he could, he kind of memorized the script, so he could use this to explain how he learned about engineering, among other things, using this Project Neo. But what we're seeing is a series of things living inside a PDF file. Not all of those things, a little quiet, but that's actually incredibly quiet. The volume must be turned down out back. But this is a slideshow that he created using a combination of Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Premiere. This is a student podcast that he created using, if you listen very carefully, if you can't hear it, you must be unfit for your job. No, wait, that's not true. This is a student podcast that he created using Adobe Audition, which is another tool that you have access to. If I jump all the way over here to the end, he actually ended up spending some time with a speech pathologist because he was speaking too soft and then he spoke too loudly. He put all of this stuff into the portfolio because he wanted to tell the story not just of Project Neo, but how Project Neo helped him to be a better student. The important thing to remember here is that what goes into this portfolio doesn't necessarily need to be, it doesn't at all need to be a PDF. What it allows you to do is to take a set of any type of asset, put it together, deliver it under the hood of a PDF because it lives, eats, and breathes, tastes, smells like a PDF file. Does anyone know what a PDF file smells like?
Delicious.
Another t-shirt winner in the crowd. I am really easy. Because what I'm looking at here, if I go back to the Finder, this thing looks like a PDF file. It works in the free reader. I can stick it on a thumb drive and take it with me. And so the first sort of use case for this concept is a student e-portfolio. But we've started to see it explode because now that you realize, or once you start realizing that you can put anything you want into this, then you can build a set of forms that explain how to use the forms and what to do with them. A student orientation package so that the students can come onto campus more prepared for what they're going to experience when they get here. A class syllabus along with the materials that are necessary to begin working in the class. You name it, you can start to build it. And it's really easy to do. Let me show you. File, create, PDF portfolio. Now, the first choice I have to make is, what do I want for my layout? Now, these are layouts that are built in. I'm going to stick with the click-through just because it'll allow me to demonstrate some things here. But the one that you saw previously was actually a thing called linear. So choose click-through. Now, add files. Now, this isn't my only chance to do this, but this is the chance that I'm going to take, or I'm going to do this now. So I'm going to add a ping file. I'm going to add a PowerPoint file. I'm going to add a Word file. Click Finish. And by the way, I'm not building the exact portfolio that I just showed you. I'm just going to build something a little bit different. Once these files are in here, the reason it takes a few moments to come up is because we're actually compressing these files to the extent that we can. So you don't need to worry about zipping things or any of that. In fact, you can't put a zip file in here because that might be a place to hide a virus, so you can't do that. But we'll compress them. But notice that these two things, these are not Adobe files of any kind. Watch what happens when I double-click on it. We can open a preview. That's specifically because this is the new Microsoft DocX file format, which is XML. The Mac operating system can read that. If you had .doc and you had Word on your system, it could still generate that preview. If you didn't have Word, then it would just look like a little card. But if I click Open File, and I'm not going to do it because I don't need to open it, but it would actually open the file in Word. So instead of forcing you into nothing but Adobe land, we're giving you a tool that allows you to put anything you want into this portfolio, using it however you want. But we've also added some other things to the mix that I think are valuable to discuss. So I'm going to click on Add Files, and one of the tools that you have access to is, let me just go ahead and grab it from another place, is a thing called the Adobe Media Encoder. What the Adobe Media Encoder allows you to do is convert anything that you want into an FLV file, Flash Video. So I'm going to drop the FLV file in there, and because it's FLV and because Adobe owns Flash and owns PDF, I can render a movie file right inside this experience without having to open a different... I know what time to end.
No, she wants to end early.
Oh, you want to end early? Why?
Just to teach so we can give all the prizes away.
Okay, we'll do that then.
It's not really.
Yep. The ability to render this in here means that you don't have to go to an external player to see these things. And we can do this with sound. And we can do this with SWF files that you create using the Flash technology that you also have access to. Now, one last type of content that you might want to add is content from an external source. So I've built this portfolio up, and I want to collect some data about this portfolio. Maybe I want to give you a quiz. You've seen a bunch of stuff. I want to know if you've understood this stuff. So I'm going to click on Add Web Content. Now, I could add the PDF file that I showed you how to create before with the form, but for whatever reason, I'm going to add instead this Form Central form. So I'm going to click on Distribute. That's the URL to that Form Central form. I can add any web content I want. Call this a quiz. Click on OK. When I double-click on this, this actually opens a browser window right inside the portfolio, and you can complete the form. It's today's date. I love Acrobat. Scroll down, click Submit. It's going to submit the document right from within inside the portfolio. And part of the reason I wanted to show you this and the Form Central piece is because there's that data right from within that portfolio built into the experience. Anything that you want, that you can put, anything that works via the web, you can include in your PDF portfolio as web content. Once it's all done, just turn off the editing mode. Actually, I'm going to make one more quick change. Change the look and feel. And actually, I want to put the quiz at the end. Click Preview. That's what you distribute. From the outside, it looks like a PDF. If you're worried that it might be a little bit large, the final thing that I want to show you is that built into the experience, we also have a free online sharing service called Adobe Send Now, where you can type in an email address, click on Send Link. It will upload to Send Now, which is actually acrobat.com, send out a link to whomever you added there, and they can pull the PDF file down and begin working with the portfolio directly. So that is Forms and Folios.